First of all, the idea that there was complete abandonment is in fact wrong. George Bush traveled more often to the region than any president previous and received more Latin American and Caribbean presidents in the White House than any previous president.
But regardless of how it happened, the fact remains that the relationship between the U.S. and Latin America is not at its best. And as Mr. Sabatini states, Obama can improve this by following some basic steps.
I think in many ways what Obama can do to improve that is, first of all, start to approach the region as partners, to listen to them, to listen to their concerns about economic security, about jobs, about inequality and poverty, and not be driven as much by ideology. A second thing is just the mere act of closing Guantanamo Bay, his promise to close in 1 year, has a huge effect across Latin America, demonstrating that this government understands the ideological perceptions and symbolism of how it respects human rights and also how it treats the hemisphere. And that, even at the mere act of symbolism, is very, very important. The third thing he can do is obviously really follow through on many of the commitments that the Bush administration did make. So, for example, the free trade agreement with Colombia. It's very important to follow through on.
But Obama cannot do it alone. He needs to pick the right cabinet to accomplish these goals. So, how does this part look so far?
First of all, at the level of his economic advisors, you have Larry Summers, Tim Geithner. These are very strong free trade advocates, people who understand the importance of free trade. But second, you also have obviously his allies in labor, the labor unions, AFL-CIO, who are very strongly anti-free trade. And Vice President Joe Biden has also demonstrated that maybe sometimes, he said this, maybe sometimes it's a good idea. And it's a very dangerous path to go down. And I think it remains to be seen if Obama can sort of cater to some of the popular interests and also his own political segment, as well as hewing towards free trade.
That was one of the reasons why Bill Richardson had been picked as Secretary of Commerce. He would have been a good trade advisor because of his negotiation skills and knowledge of Latin America. But now, the administration lacks such a person.
Well, part of the issue for a reason that there's not anyone who has a strong focus on Latin America is it really hasn't, the appointments have not trickled down to that level yet. We're still really less than a month after the inauguration, and Latin America, as in with many regional posts, have not been filled. I think you'll see them filled with a number of leading Hispanic Americans. The list is very short. It's getting shorter by the day. But filling those positions is not a priority, and it's difficult given the lack of attention that has been paid to Latin America by Hillary Clinton and in this administration to discern who will be picked and how they will lead the country.
According to Sabatini, filling these positions will not be an easy task, especially when it comes to meeting the status quo of Latino appointments.
I think it's difficult to fill these positions. A number of leading Hispanic American figures, for example, Henry Cisneros, who had been at HUD before, are not interested in participating in government anymore. I think you're going to see a lot of the lower level positions being filled by prominent Hispanic Americans. They're out there. But I think the first round he wanted to send a sign that this was going to be a very moderate administration and one that chose from the center and with figures, given the place the country's in right now, figures that were known quantities because he did want to send a message of stability.
And while we wait for the outcome of the remaining appointments, Mr. Sabatini, as many other experts, is not sure what to expect from the Secretary of State when it comes to Latin American policy.
Her contact with Latin America has been very, very limited. Yeah, I think you'll see in some ways just sort of a continuation of an effort in terms of policies towards Bolivia and Venezuela, should they continue to really push back on U.S. interests and defy U.S. interests and attack the United States rhetorically. But I think other than that, it's very difficult to discern. She does not have a long track record on Latin American policy.
Well, Dan, during the campaign we discussed a lot, like there's not one Hispanic community, there's not one Latin America either. We have different realities, we have different ideologies, different groups controlling the region right now. How do you think Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will deal with that?
Well, I think that she's probably going to take a very pragmatic view towards the region. Certainly she's very interested in the social agenda in Latin America, including health and education and so forth. And she'll be a strong defender of democracy as well. I think that it's important when you talk about the appointment process and whether it's going fast or slow, you have to recognize that there is going to be one very important new face at the Summit of the Americas in April, and that will be the face of Barack Obama. He, in fact, is going to be the person that's setting out the policies for the administration. He's going to be representing the United States there. Whether he's accompanied by Tom Shannon, the current Assistant Secretary, or a new figure, I think is frankly less relevant than the fact that he's the person who will be driving the U.S. agenda.
But what we in Latin America want to see is what are the issues that he's going to bring. And let me bring you Juan Carlos on that discussion. The 3Ds that that the United States was insisting so much in Latin America: democracy, development, and drugs are issues that are important, but I think we are over those. We need to concentrate on other points, like, for example, energy security. Like, how do we get over with the social inequalities that exist in the region? There is issues of environment. There is a new and different agenda that Latin America would like to discuss with the United States.
I think that those are issues that Latin Americans should deal with themselves, and it's not Washington business to try to impose or suggest an agenda for Latin American countries.
But the United States has always concentrated his relationship on the issues the United States wants to concentrate.
There is one issue there, one of those Ds that really concern me, and is the issue of drugs and what is going on in Mexico right now. I think that the United States can no longer ignore the mess that the war on drugs is creating in Mexico, in the southern neighbor. Last year, 5,000 people died in drug-related crimes. And just yesterday, a group of influential former presidents, Fernando Enrique Cardoso from Brazil, Cesar Gaviria from Colombia, and Ernesto Zedillo from Mexico, released a report calling for breaking the taboo of discussing alternatives to this war on drugs.
And saying that the drug on wars did not work.
It's not working, definitely it's not working. The drugs keep flowing to the United States, and what we're seeing is that countries with weak institutions like Mexico are paying the price for this war on drugs with high
So you think that policy needs to change, the focus needs to change?
Exactly, and I think that the Obama administration will be very well advised to listen to Latin Americans and listen to what this commission is suggesting. Like, let's talk about alternatives. Let's talk about other policies that might be better in tackling the drug issue.